Hi, class. Today I am a fox or a cat. I'm not sure. But the reality is I got caught in the rain outside and my hair looks terrible. I guess you probably don't care, but I do. So now I'm a fox. It's kind of freaking me out, but we'll see. I'm going to go ahead and get started. We're on module 7 and objectives 3 and 4. This is our last video for module 7. Without further ado, let me share my screen and get that objective going. Okay, so objective number 3 is to discuss how and why outcome expectancies are central concepts in substance use. So we're going to talk about expectancy, outcome expectancy. Well, first off, what is outcome expectancy? It's the anticipation of a reward or a punishment for doing something. So what do you expect to happen, basically, when you drink alcohol? So, for example, with alcohol, the common American alcohol expectancies are that if you drink alcohol, you will get some positive rewards, like positive feelings, sexual enhancement, woo-woo, physical and social pleasure. You'll feel good in your body. It'll be a good time, some relaxation. So I want you to think about, what are your expectancies for alcohol? What do you think will happen if you drink some alcohol? And then where do these expectancies come from? Do they come from your experience with alcohol or from other things? Because it turns out we have expectancies even before we actually even ever drink alcohol. So let's look at where these expectancies come from. Well, this ad will give you an idea, right? This ad features Bud Light, and it shows, this sort of sexy, good time playing some pool and getting it on. So where do we get expectancies? We get it partially from the media that's always telling us, you'll have a great time if you just drink. And there's this amazing things that are going to make you feel better, all these substances. Cigarette ads, when they used to be allowed, would show the same kinds of things. We also get modeling from family and others. I told you about the way that my mom drank a drink every night, and she, always felt good when she did it. And so when I learned that from modeling, that I learned to expect to feel good if you drink alcohol. But it also comes from your experience. So in your past experience, you may have found that when you drink, you do feel good. And so that experience will give us that expectancy as well. So what do you expect to happen when you drink or use other substances? And, that may have come from a number of different sources. Okay, so let's look at the research on that expectancy and behavior with regard to substance use. So what does the research say? A ton of studies have said that people who expect positive outcomes of drinking and doing drugs tend to do more. Well, that makes some sense, because if you expect positive outcomes, you're going to be more likely to do it. But there are a couple of interesting things about it. One is that among kids and adolescents, even before they've started to drink, for example, or do any drugs, they will oftentimes have positive expectancies. And that actually predicts use. It predicts how much they will use when they do start drinking. So it doesn't all come from one's experience. We have these expectancies even prior to having any experience with drugs or alcohol. And that suggests a causal relationship, because the expectancy comes prior to the actual use. That suggests, anyway, that the expectancy actually causes us to use, in the sense that if we expect positive things, we're more likely to try it and more likely to use it. Another thing that clues us into the fact that it's really not about experience entirely is that different cultures have different kinds of expectancies. So, for example, if you are a member of a Hispanic group, like I am, my father's Cuban. in many Hispanic groups, there's an expectation that there's going to be emotional and behavioral impairment on drinking alcohol. And you notice you didn't see that in the original list of alcohol expectancies that I showed you, the typical American alcohol expectancies. And I have to say, my father, who was, though he was Cuban, did not, I'd never witnessed that particular expectancy in him. But at any rate, Hispanic groups as a whole, not to say that every single Hispanic person does this, but they have more of a tendency to report that that alcohol will bring an emotional and behavioral impairment. So that's a negative expectancy. But what this shows is, because we see Hispanic people being different from other groups, it shows that expectancy is not a pharmacological effect, or it's not an effect having to do with the consumption of alcohol per se. It is an effect that can be partially cultural or social. Okay, so we know that expectancy predicts use, and even heavy use, and there's a lot of evidence to that effect. But does expectancy affect treatment outcomes? Is a person with very, very positive expectancies of alcohol, for example, having more trouble abstaining from alcohol or getting effective treatment for alcohol use? Well, what does the research say? It turns out that that initial expectancy, so let's say you have alcohol use disorder and you have a very positive expectancy of alcohol versus a negative expectancy of alcohol, it's really not a strong predictor of treatment outcome. It's quite a weak predictor of treatment outcome. So it doesn't mean that if you have a strongly positive expectancy that you'll fail at treatment. But what we do see in terms of expectancy and treatment is that when you're in treatment, over time, your expectancy starts to change. So in those who quit, they might have started out with a very, very positive expectancy, let's say, of alcohol use, where they thought, oh, I'm going to feel great. Oh, I'm going to have this amazing time sexually and socially and blah, blah, blah. But once they quit, those expectancies actually change. And so it turns out that quitting itself can change those expectancies. And so perhaps that change in expectancy keeps people abstinent, or keeps them from relapsing. Okay, we're going to talk about, speaking of relapse, we're going to talk about objective 4, which is applying social learning theory to relapse prevention. Okay, so let's talk about relapse and another word, a new word perhaps for you, which is lapse. So what is a lapse? That is a brief use, a one-time use. So when I quit smoking cigarettes for the very last time, I was 33 years old. And I went down out to Kansas City and was out with some friends, and I was in a bar, and a friend had some cigarettes and she gave me one and I smoked it. That was a lapse. I did not go back to smoking. I smoked that one cigarette that one time, and that was it. Okay. And then since then, I've never smoked another cigarette. So that was after probably a year of being off cigarettes. I had one lapse. Okay, that's a brief use. That is not a big deal, that kind of slip. But a relapse can happen. And a relapse is when you return to heavy use. So that would have been if I started once again smoking a pack of cigarettes a day. So lapses occur very frequently. And relapse prevention is usually about breaking that link so that a lapse doesn't turn into a relapse. So somehow, if you can stop it at the point of a lapse, better to even stop it before the lapse, but if you stop it at the point of the lapse, then it doesn't turn into a relapse. So the question is, how do you do that? Well, let's take a look at some of the historical views of relapse. And many people still believe these even of themselves. So this idea is that a relapse is a loss of control. Now I've lost it. Now I'm done. Now I'm just going to be a smoker again. right? I'm weak, I'm irresponsible, I'm lazy, I'm a failure, I have no self-control, and now I'm just going to be a smoker again, and that's it, because I'm incapable of doing this abstinence thing. So that's kind of the way we think about relapse in society, but it's not the way social learning theory thinks about relapse. In what happens when we basically have a lapse, sometimes what happens is that a person has really, really intense shame. And let me tell you, when I smoked that cigarette, ooh, I felt bad, like bad the next day. I mean, I had done something kind of terrible and wrong. A person may feel a lot of guilt, a lot of embarrassment, and that's what we call the abstinence violation effect. You have violated this rule that you've set for yourself, which is abstinence, and now you feel absolutely terrible. So unfortunately and ironically, these feelings actually make you more likely to relapse, because you're doing all this self-loathing and all of this kind of self-defeating thoughts that are going to make you more likely to relapse. So you start to think of yourself as a failure and things like that. So it's important not to think about relapse or lapses as a personal failure. They're not a personal failure. Rather, what social learning theory says, and again, this is changing those cognitions, those personal factors, is to think about relapse or lapses as a learning experience. You can learn from this situation. So how do you learn from this situation? So the analysis of relapse from a social learning theory perspective is that lapses and relapses, again, are this learning experience. Now, the question is, what were my triggers? Okay, in my case, being in a bar and drinking, that was a big trigger. Being with friends and things like that as well. What situations are risky? Going out with people who smoke, right? And who have cigarettes and who offer me cigarettes, right? What strategies and skills can I use to prevent that situation? Maybe I can change my environment, maybe not go to bars, maybe tell my friend to never ever offer me a cigarette, right? What kinds of things can I use to prevent that situation, to cope with that situation? So rather than just putting it away and saying, oh, I feel terrible, I feel so bad about this lapse, instead you say, wait a minute, let me analyze this, let me investigate it, let me look into it, let me see what I can learn from it. So according to social learning theory, a high-risk situation combined with a self-defeating thinking is really what relapse is about. So a high-risk situation might be a party or a bar, a wedding reception. You can imagine all the millions of other high-risk situations for using drugs and alcohol. And then if we put that together with a kind of self-defeating thinking, and we'll talk a little bit more about this in the next slide, there's a craving that goes along with the rationalization. So you're craving, you feel like, oh, I've been deprived of this. There's this pleasure in life that I don't get to have. Everybody else is up here getting drunk and feeling good, and I don't get to have this. I owe this to myself. It's what I've got to do right now. So that's that kind of self-defeating thinking, that when you're in a high-risk situation, that combined with that self-defeating thinking, that is going to tend to lead to relapse. Okay, another concept that leads to relapse is what's called an apparently irrelevant decision. Now, these are kind of interesting. They seem like decisions that are like, that's nothing, that's totally irrelevant. But it turns out that people who are abstinent, let's say, from alcohol, they make some decisions that actually seem to lead to relapse before they actually relapse. So they are doing things that lead up to relapse before they actually relapse. So these are many decisions that lead to high-risk situations. So, for example, let's say a recovering alcohol user decides to go to the liquor store to buy whiskey, but only as a present for a friend. It's not for me, right? Or what about visiting an old friend's house where they used to drink together? You know, once again, oh, I can handle this. This will be fine. Going to a bar, right? Keeping beer at home just to entertain others, you know, just like it's a good idea to have it around in case other people come over and things like that. Now, to the person, this may seem irrelevant, but in fact, the number of these little mini decisions tends to lead people to relapse. So let's take a look at how all this stuff works together. Okay, so let's say I've quit drinking alcohol. I have alcohol use disorder, and then I'm under a lot of stress, and I'm thinking to myself, I've been deprived. I'm just sitting here stressed out all the time, and I have nothing to relieve me, and I have nothing to make me feel better, right? And then I get into this belief system that says, I owe myself a drink. I owe it to myself. Why am I being so hard on myself? I shouldn't be so mean to myself or put myself in this deprived state. Okay, then I get this expectancy effects of alcohol, and that generates this kind of craving, which is like parties are more fun with alcohol. And then I get a rationalization and the apparently irrelevant decision, or AIDS. I know that's a funny little acronym there. But anyway, so I have this rationalization says, well, I'm on vacation. I can go to this party. I can stay up late. I don't have work to do. I've done all my work. And then I say, and then I get this apparently irrelevant to say, well, I'm buying wine for the party, for others at the party. And notice that these arrows go back and forth there between the expectancy, the craving, the rationalization, the apparently irrelevant decision. And all of that leads to this high-risk situation. That's how these high-risk situations and this sort of self-defeating thinking, again, a situation being environmental, and then all of these personal factors having to do with cognition come together to produce the behavior of drinking. In this case, we're talking about relapse. So I hope you enjoyed Module 7. We've got some take-home points here. Number 1, the environment, the personal factors or cognitions, which are personal factors, can also include genetic vulnerability and things like that. It's not just cognitions, but the cognitions generally fall into the personal factors category. And then behaviors, they're all 3 really important for understanding addiction. And intervention is possible at any one of those points. So we can intervene, for example, at the social environment. We can intervene into our own thoughts about things, right? And taking care of some of those self-defeating thoughts. We can also intervene at the behavioral level by stopping drinking, for example, or stopping drug use, or cutting down, moderating. Okay, self-efficacy, self-regulation, modeling, and expectancies also affect use. And those should be incorporated into treatment. We want to increase self-efficacy. We want to increase a healthy self-regulation so the person can reward themselves internally. We want to see good models and have expectancies that reflect actual use of drugs rather than overly positive expectancies. And then finally, relapse is common. Lapses and relapses are very common. But how people think about the relapse can influence the outcome, whether they'll be able to go from a lapse to a relapse, or to be able to quit just at the level of a lapse. I hope you guys enjoyed Module 7, and we'll see you next time.